campaign, and now I'm gonna deliver immigrants to her supporters.
No! We are voting for you, don't worry.
Are you?
Of course.
We do have a surprise, if that's okay, just real fast.
You have a surprise?
We're looking for a place for them to stay. They just came across. They'll sleep on floors. I mean, they're not picky, you know.
We have like a 2-year-old, so
Hector's good with kids.
sorry, we just can't.
Could they just like sleep on your lawn?
They need a place to stay. They just came across.
My teenagers live with me. I don't
Oh, that's
have an
fine.
extra room.
Hector, he was dating a teenager like a little bit ago, so.
Okay.
They just came across. They don't have papers. You're in support of like the whole border situation, and we're just trying to get them a floor to sleep on.
We're a house of COVID.
You guys want COVID? They said they could survive it.
She really learned how to say her name.
We work with her, so we know how to say her name.
Earlier you said Kamala. The way she pronounces her name is Kamala. You don't work with her.
See that car? We have 3 dudes who just came across the border. We're trying to find them a home.
Find them a home.
Just say I'm voting for Donald Trump without saying it, okay?
That's a wrong attitude, mister. I said my fault.
So you're voting Kamala?
No. You said it again.
Yes. For every single open borders leftist and open borders anarchist, we will send them all an illegal immigrant to live in their homes. They must take one in. Good morning, Andy Opperman, Evan Rowan, Barney Styles, Amy J.E.'s, Eminem, Cecilia HBB for Liberty, Frank and Bean 76. The gang's all here. Happy Tuesday. We're going to have a great show today, man. It's going to be so good. You don't want to miss a single minute. It is January 13th, 2026. If you're just waking up, don't worry. You're already having a better week than the editorial board of the New York Times. Yeah. If you listened closely yesterday, you could hear the collective wailing and gnashing of teeth coming from their headquarters. Why? Because they tried to set a trap for Donald Trump, and they ended up catching their own tail. Today on the program, we are celebrating Vindication. First up, we are looking south. Remember when they told us Javier Milei was a danger to democracy? Yes. Oh, yes. Afuera. Remember when they said that his chainsaw was going to destroy the Argentine poor, you know?
No, God, please, no, no.
Well, the scoreboard is lit up, folks. Inflation is dead, rents are down, the budget is balanced, and the experts are currently pretending they never said a word. We're going to do a deep dive into the chainsaw vindication and ask the question, if a guy with funny hair and a chainsaw can save a country in 1 year, what is Congress's excuse? Why can't we have wins here in America? Can't we win? Can't we have some wins? I was just talking to somebody on Twitter about this yesterday. Is that no, the United States can't have wins. We can't have, well, these other countries can make, El Salvador can make reforms and they can have a safer country. No, you can't do that in America. America never can, you can't win in America. No safe streets in America. Well, excuse me. You know what? Norm McDonald, get in here.
No offense, but it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
Yes, it does, Norm. Sorry for the F-bombs. But we're going to win. We're going to win, and we're going to win for liberty, right? The New York Times sat down with the president this week. He's notching wins. He's getting some dubs. They walked in with their little notepads and their eyeglasses like Harry Potter's, trying to pin the anti-Semitism tail on the MAGA elephant. They asked him about Nick Fuentes. They asked him about 4-year-old dinners he had. They thought they had him. Instead, they got a master class in how to deal with losers. Trump didn't apologize. He didn't stutter. He told the racists to take a hike. And he told the Times that he, the man with Jewish grandchildren, doesn't need a lecture from the paper that buried the Holocaust in the back pages in the 1940s. It was glorious. So we have the transcript. We're going to read it with the respect it deserves, which is none. And finally, a victory for the little guy. You guys know how much I hate the corporate vultures who buy up local newspapers and strip them for parts. Well, right here in Missouri, the good guys struck back. My friend Scott Fawn just bought a fleet of newspapers back from the conglomerate. He's in the studio today here with me to talk about how we save local news from the hedge funds. So that'll be a great conversation. Ooh. Oh my God, somebody just triple, quadruple, montuple, septuple unlocked the bonus content. We're going to Boston, baby. Maybe. We've also got, looks like, we're going to Boston. We're going to Boston. I'll get there in just a second. Don't get too excited, all right? I've got bonus content for you. It's going to be a great show today. We're going to have an absolutely spectacular show. Andy is in for Boston. We're going to Boston. Terms and conditions coming up soon. I'll explain. So first I want to say this, guys, we don't have to bow down to the advertisers who want us to tone it down. Okay. You know why? It's because of people like you, Andy Opperman and others. When you go to forlibertyshop.com, when you go and you buy a box of coffee, right? Then, or especially if you become a supporter at 1776 and you help us build the lifeboat for liberty lovers who are ready to run away from the child heroin caucus and go towards something more sane, towards my libertarian nationalism. The experts and the libturds and the libertary turds are furious. The media is embarrassed because liberty is going to win. America is going to win. I'm Austin Peterson. This is the Wake Up America show. Strap in. It's going to be a fun one. And if you get your panties in a little twist or your pearls, may they be clutched. If they be clutching, then just sit back, relax, and trust me, I am a normie libertarian, and I will guide you through this. It might get a little weird, but deep down, I'll drag you kicking and screaming, and in the end, you will thank me. I talk about on this show a lot about the spirit of 1776. I talk about the men who stood on the village green at Lexington and faced down an empire. But talking about history is one thing, right? Walking where they walked, standing where they stood, that changes you. And that is why I want you to join me and Andy and Quest and my brother Justin and Stephanie in Boston this year to celebrate America's 250th anniversary. We're putting together an exclusive boots on the ground tour of the Cradle of Liberty this May 1st and 2nd. We're talking Old North Church. We're talking the Boston Massacre site. We're talking the pubs where the Sons of Liberty planned the revolution. But here's the deal. This is a mission, not a vacation. And like any mission, we have a deadline. We have exactly 30 days to sell the first 10 tickets. If we hit that number, the birds are in the air and we're going to Boston. If we don't, the money gets returned and the trip is scrubbed. It doesn't happen. So I need 10 patriots to step up and say, I'm in. And to sweeten the pot, we have a flash sale starting right now. So for the next 10 days only, if you're buying multiple tickets, bring your wife, bring your brother, bring your best friend, you're going to get 25% off that entire order with the code BOSTON25. And my diehard supporters, my Peterson's Patriots subscribers and above, Stephanie's sending you an email. You should have your code for 20% off, even if you just buy a single ticket. Remember, if you pick one discount or the other, they don't stack. But either way, you're saving money. So it's not just a trip, guys. This is a pilgrimage to the birthplace of American freedom. Do not wait. Do not hesitate. Go to forlibertyshop.com and let's go make some history of your own. The clock is ticking. I'll see you in Boston. Remember last year? Everybody who went last year to the APDC tour loved it. We had a fantastic time. We made the news because I was told to put my American flag away. Do you think I'm going to be putting any American flags away this year like we did last year at the Natural History Museum? Does everybody remember this story? So join us in Boston. We need 10 people to make it work, and ideally 15 people so that we don't just break even. Somebody was complaining about the price, and I was like, you have no idea how hard it is and expensive it is to put something like this together. It doesn't just grow on trees. But I appreciate all of you who've already bought tickets. We've got Quest, we've got Andy, we sold some tickets, and we are definitely well on our way to unlocking that 10 level. And we unlocked today's bonus content. But don't let that deter you. Head on over to forlibertyshop.com, guys. You're going to need some coffee. This show is going to certainly perk you up. So I want to start this segment with a moment of silence. A moment of silence for the credibility of the expert class. Because as of this morning, January 12th, the globalist economic narrative is officially dead. And the man who killed it is Javier Milei. Afuera! We have to talk about it. We have to talk about what is happening in Argentina right now because the American people, the American media is trying to bury it. Some people in America, they're trying to bury it because it proves mathematically, undeniably, that everything they have told you for the last 50 years is a lie. So let's go back to 2023. Do you guys remember the hysteria the New York Times called Milei a danger to democracy? So The Guardian said that he would bring social devastation. Paul Krugman, the man who has predicted 12 of the last 0 recessions, sneered that Milei's ideas were magical thinking. They told you that they cannot cut government spending without killing the poor. They told you that austerity causes depressions. They told you that the only way to fix an economy is to print more money and to hire more bureaucrats. Well, let's look at the scoreboard. When Milei took office, inflation was running at 211%. The currency was worthless. Store owners were changing price tags 3 times a day. Today, inflation has collapsed 220% annually. Monthly inflation is hovering around 1.8%, the lowest in 20 years. He didn't just bend the curve, he snapped its neck. They said his cuts would cause a fiscal apocalypse. Reality check. For the first time since 2010, Argentina has a budget surplus. He took a country that has been addicted to debt for a century and turned a profit in his first month. So think about that. We have been running deficits in this country since Clinton. Milei fixed it in 30 days. How? He didn't raise taxes. He didn't print money. He picked up a chainsaw. He fired 50,000 useless bureaucrats. He closed the Ministry of Women, Gender, and Diversity. He looked at the parasites in the eye, and he said the 3 most beautiful words in the Spanish language. No hay plata. There is no money. But the greatest victory, and the one that should make every mayor in America feel shame, is housing. For years, Argentina had the strictest rent control laws in the world. The experts told us that this was necessary to protect the poor. They said if we don't control the prices, the greedy landlords will exploit everyone. The result? It was a disaster. You couldn't find an apartment in Buenos Aires if your life depended on it. Landlords pulled their units off the market. It was a ghost town. Milei didn't reform the law. He didn't create a blue ribbon commission to study it. He repealed it. Day 1, gone. The media screamed. They said landlords would gouge the tenants. They said it would be a humanitarian crisis. What actually happened? Within 6 months, the supply of rental units skyrocketed by 200%, and real rental prices, adjusted for inflation, dropped by 40%. Let me repeat this for the slow kids and the people in the back, and specifically for the City Council of New York and San Francisco and Zoran Mamdani and Sia Weaver and all of their lieutenants. When you let the market work, prices go down. Supply goes up. It is not magic. It is gravity. It is an iron law. When you remove the government boot from the neck of the property owner, they actually want to rent their property. Who could have predicted that? Oh, right. We did, right? But it gets even better. It gets even better, right? He slashed the subsidies for transportation and energy. The media cried, quote, cruelty. But here is the trick. He stopped printing money. So while the price of a bus ticket went up, the inflation tax that was stealing 50% of everyone's paycheck went away. The poor in Argentina are better off today, not because they have a government handout, but because their money actually buys food again. And this is the lesson. The government cannot give you anything that it doesn't steal from you first. Milei just stopped the theft. Now, how did he actually do it? How did he actually pull this off? Because cutting spending is easy to say, but it's hard to execute when the deep state is fighting you. Does anybody remember Doge, Elon Musk, richest man in the world, couldn't get it done? Right? This is the part that the American media won't tell you because they are terrified that you might get ideas. Milei didn't use a chainsaw on the budget. He used a flamethrower on the regulatory state. He appointed a man named Federico Sturzenegger as the Minister of Deregulation, and Sturzenegger launched something called the Ley Hojarasca. The law of fallen leaves. His job was to find every obsolete, stupid, cronyist law on the books and delete it. Listen to some of the things that they found. They repealed a law from 1864 that banned whipping because guess what? The Constitution already bans torture. Why do we need a duplicate law? We don't. But bureaucrats love duplicate laws because every law needs a regulator. They repealed a law that required the president to be the godfather of any son born in Argentina to prevent him from turning into a werewolf. No, not that godfather. No, I'm not making this up. That was a real law, and they were spending tax dollars administering this law. Sturzenegger deleted 3,000 regulations in his first year. Import licenses? Gone. You used to have to bribe a government official just to import a laptop. Now, you just buy it. Price controls on beef? Gone. And guess what? There is more beef on the shelves. This is the Ministry of Deregulation. It is an institution dedicated solely to destroying the government's power. Can you imagine if the United States had a cabinet secretary whose only job was to wake up every morning and ask, what law can I delete today? That is the dream. And in Argentina, that is the reality. It's jealous. I'm jealous. Who's jealous? Don't forget to click the like button if today is the first time that you're watching the Wake Up America show. We'd be glad to have you be a regular guest. So click the follow button as well. Come back and join us every Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time on the show. You can always text questions to 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. That's your direct text line to the show. Brad and Stephanie and I are watching it as much as we can. We are responding. And if you have questions about your orders per se, over on the Wake Up America show's merch shop at thegriftshop.com, then hit that button. It's really easy to do. Grab your controller, TikTok, and 573-319-1586 is that text line. Program it in. Save it if you ever want to get in touch with us. That way you can feel free to say, hey, Austin, liked the show today. Got an idea for you. We'd love to hear from our audience. We love to hear from our fans. We can't wait to see some of you in Boston this year. So how about that? Why is Javier Milei so popular with some people and so unpopular with others? Maybe it's because he says things like Nazism and fascism are branches of socialism.
¿Le ilusiona la posibilidad de un cambio de gobierno en Colombia?
Lo van a tener que determinar los colombianos, pero claramente no es alguien que comulgo con las ideas. Pero es interesante.
Colombia is not some of his ideas he shares. It's interesting he's so ignorant. I love Milei. He does not give shit left towards an inch.
De hecho,
he responds to like the nostalgia for Mussolini here.
El propio Mussolini.
He says because in fact Mussolini himself, when he talks about fascism, says everything within the state, nothing outside the state, and nothing against the state. Let's say it's one of the socialist variants of fascism. Whether they like it or not, whether they want to accept it or not, let's say both Nazism and fascism are branches of socialism. That's damn straight, Mussolini. Milei, excuse me. There's a recent book by Axel Kaiser. I'll have to check that one out lately. Yeah, that kind of stuff pisses people off. The left doesn't like it. The left doesn't like the fact that they're associated with Adolf Hitler because they've been trying to pin that on other people. They've been trying to pin that on the conservatives, the Republicans, the people who actually, landed on the beaches of Normandy and fought for this country's liberty. The conservatives, the libertarians, the right. You don't see these purple-haired leftists signing up for the military. They go for the top jobs and control the institutions and everything and become the deep state. Yikes. Moving on. So, why does this matter to us? I know many of you might be asking, why is what's happening in Argentina so important that Austin devotes so much of his time to it? Because right now in Washington, D.C., we are looking at a tragedy. We had our chance. We had the Department of Government Efficiency. Doge, right? We had Elon, we had Vivek, we had the mandate. And what happened? The deep state killed it. On Inauguration Day last year, Vivek Ramaswamy walked away. He saw the structure. He saw that it was just an advisory board with no teeth. He knew he could do more good running for governor of Ohio than sitting in a basement writing reports that Congress would ignore. And Elon, he tried. He posted the memes. He exposed the waste, but then the lawsuits hit. The federal union sued on January 20th. The National Security Counselors sued. They argued that Doge violated the Federal Advisory Committee Act. They tied him up in so much red tape that by May of 2025, Elon had to pivot away. Doge failed, and it failed because you cannot fight a monster with a commission. You cannot fight the swamp with a PowerPoint presentation. The deep state doesn't care if you mock them on X. As long as the check's clear, they win. Javier Milei didn't ask for permission. He didn't create a commission. He created a ministry, and he gave it statutory authority to repeal laws. In the United States, the unions broke Doge. In Argentina, Milei broke the unions. And that is the difference between a politician and a revolutionary. A politician tries to negotiate with the parasite. A revolutionary kills the parasite to save the host. So where do we go from here? The Doge experiment is over. It failed, and we need to have the courage to admit it failed so we don't make the same mistake again. We don't need another blue ribbon panel. We need to do exactly what Milei did. We need a secretary of deregulation, not an advisor. A cabinet secretary with the power of the pen. We need to take the Chevron deference ruling from the Supreme Court and weaponize it. If a regulation wasn't explicitly voted on by Congress, it should be null and void, automatic sunset. We need to stop asking, how can we make the Department of Education more efficient? And start asking, why does the Department of Education exist? Milei showed us the way. He showed us that the pain of cuts is temporary, but the stagnation of socialism is eternal. The American people are ready. We voted for the chainsaw, but we got a butter knife. It is time to trade it in. If the president wants to save his legacy, if he wants to save this economy from the $36 trillion debt bomb ticking under our feet, he needs to stop listening to the moderates who told him to play nice with the swamp. Playing nice got Doge killed. It's time to stop playing. It's time to start deleting. Look at the scoreboard. Freedom works. The only thing we have to lose is our chains and about 50,000 useless regulations. I'm Austin Peterson. That's the lesson from the South. And if we're smart, it will be the future of the North. Clip it, Brad. Clip it. We're going to take a quick little break. You guys have unlocked your bonus content. You've earned it. Andy, thank you so much. We love you guys. During this quick little break, head to forlibertyshop.com. We'll be right back. We've got what's up next. The werewolf law. I've got a historical footnote that's going to blow your mind. I'll be right back on the Wake Up America show. And this is what? The For Liberty Network.
The Minnesota fraud scandal is just the tip of the iceberg. Medicaid fraud has been endemic at the state and federal levels for decades. Focusing on a single official or state misses a deeper lesson. Growing national outrage over Minnesota's welfare fraud is justified, but not because of where it took place, or because it implicates members of any immigrant community. It's much more than a Minnesota story. The outrage is justified because Americans are finally getting a concrete look at what happens when pushing public money out the door matters more than verifying the eligibility of the recipients, confirming services were delivered, or ultimately being a good steward of taxpayers' money. Since 2022, investigators have uncovered a staggering amount of fraud, including $250 million siphoned from pandemic-era child nutrition programs to a network of individuals and shell companies, and have secured dozens of indictments with more prosecutions underway. But it goes beyond that. Federal prosecutors now suggest that up to half of the $18 billion spent on 14 Medicaid-funded Minnesota programs since 2018 may have been tied to fraud. The scandal touches programs covering housing assistance, autism therapy, and other welfare services. Even if those estimates are ultimately revised downward, the pattern is unmistakable. Fraud did not merely slip through the cracks, it became routine. Minnesota is not the exception, but rather the example Americans finally noticed. Medicaid fraud has been endemic at the state and federal levels for decades. Politicians haven't done much, even with scholars and journalists raising the alarm. Medicaid reports $543 billion in improper payments over the past decade, though that figure omits one of the largest sources of error: whether states correctly determined the eligibility of the individuals they enrolled and paid providers on behalf of. According to Paragon Institute calculations, this brings improper payments to $1.1 trillion over those 10 years. Improper payments are not identical to fraud. Many involve missing documentation or administrative errors. But that distinction offers little comfort considering how little money is recovered. They are also an open invitation for more abuse. Actual fraud, meanwhile, is widespread and persistent. In 2024 alone, state Medicaid fraud control units reported more than 1,151 convictions and more than $1.4 billion in civil and criminal recoveries. Federal enforcement recovers a tiny share of what is stolen. Fraud that goes undetected never appears in the data. That's only the tip of the iceberg. Medicare, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, and many other welfare programs also suffer from massive fraud. The Affordable Care Act's ACA exchange subsidies provide another cautionary example. A recent Government Accountability Office report shows that the fraud risks in the ACA's advanced premium tax credit remain severe a decade after they were first identified. The ability to gain subsidized coverage for fictitious applicants without providing required documentation, tens of thousands of Social Security numbers used for overlapping coverage, and more than $21 billion in subsidies never reconciled with tax filings are among the findings. Nonetheless, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services has not updated its fraud risk assessment since 2018 and still lacks a comprehensive anti-fraud strategy. It's tempting to treat the Minnesota scandal as a morality play about managerial incompetence. And yes, Governor Tim Walz deserves some blame. When red flags persist for years across multiple programs, failure of leadership is part of the story. But focusing on a single official or state misses the deeper lesson. The problem is not administrative capacity, it's incentives. Spending other people's money with little personal consequence for failure leads to a collapse of accountability, regardless of who's in charge. In addition, voters have limited incentives to monitor complex programs. Interest groups, by contrast, have strong incentives to organize around government spending. None of this requires bad intentions. It's predictable human behavior flowing from predictable incentives, but it creates an environment for waste and fraud to take root. What would a serious anti-fraud agenda look like? First, simplify the structure of the programs that produce improper payments and fraud. Federal matching grants, which Medicaid is largely built around, push states to build systems far larger than they would ever fund themselves, diluting accountability and encouraging growth for its own sake. Second, do away with automatic enrollment and the pay now, scrutinize later style of oversight, which lets temporary errors turn into recurring bills. Any beneficiary's eligibility must be regularly affirmed. If this can't be done at scale, the honest response is to scale back on unsustainable promises, not to add more bureaucracy. Third, ultimately, no oversight regime can police a government so large and complex. Some programs must be split up or entrusted with fewer responsibilities. Those that can't account for where their dollars go should operate with tighter budgets. The public is right to be angry. In fact, it should be angrier and in a more bipartisan way, but we should not demand tougher rhetoric, more task forces, or another round of enforcement layered onto the same broken structure. If we want less fraud, we need less government. Minnesota's not the whole story, but it's a fraud alert that's hard to ignore.
5 of them. 5 of them. I count at least five lib turds got dropped by the MAGA man. MAGA man, I wish I had time for a full fight breakdown because I would karate sensei segment with the whole FAFO, go around and find out. God bless America. MAGA man, you are our man of the day. The FAFO collection available at forlibertyshop.com. Check it out. FAFO stickers, FAFO heritage mugs, FAFO heritage t-shirts. Excuse me, is that George friggin' Washington wearing our merchandise? Holy crap. George Washington would have shopped at forlibertyshop.com if it had existed at the time. You know it. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. We're going to have such an amazing show today, and it's only 30 minutes in. I've got so much more great stuff for you. I got so many clips. I want to be able to show all the clips. You're not even going to watch all the clips because the show's only 2 hours long. Thank you to those who unlocked the bonus content today. I hope that you enjoyed it. We've got some fun stuff happening today on the show. We're going to play a game at the end of the show today. It's going to turn into a game show. We've got show and tell. Games and glittering prizes today. It's just going to be a fantastic time. So you don't want to miss the next hour and a half. Make sure that clear your schedule this morning and let's hang out together. The Wake Up America show is live and I'm Austin Peterson. I want to take a quick detour from the topics because that werewolf law that I mentioned in Argentina, the one where, you know, the 7th child, you had to make sure it wasn't a werewolf. You had to be the godfather of the law. The president had to be the godfather of the 7th child because they might be a werewolf. That was a real law. We're going to take a quick detour because the werewolf law, it just reminded me of something in this fight for liberty. How do we fight for liberty, right? I've learned all the theories of liberty, but I never learned how to fight for liberty. I had to learn for myself because there aren't any good libertarian books on how to fight for liberty. Maybe it's time for me to write one. It's time to fighting for libertarians. But this is more than just kind of a historical footnote. It's kind of the perfect metaphor for what's happening to the liberty movement right now. Have you guys ever played the party game Werewolf or Mafia? If you haven't, here's how it works. So you have a large group of villagers. They are the good guys. They are the majority, but they are uninformed. So they don't know who is who. Then you have a small group of werewolves. They're the bad guys. They are the minority. But here is their advantage. They know who each other are. The game is simple. Every night, the wolves wake up, look at each other, and decide to kill one villager. During the day, the wolves pretend to be villagers. They act confused. They accuse innocent people. They sow chaos. And unless the villagers can figure out who the wolves are and vote them out, the wolves always win. Why? Because an organized minority with bad intentions will always defeat a disorganized majority with good intentions. This is exactly what's happening to Javier Milei in Argentina, and it is exactly what is happening to the liberty movement in America. We have people wearing our jersey. They use our hashtags. They say liberty. They say MAGA, but they are wolves. They're the consultants who tell the president to tone it down. They are the libertarian organizations that suddenly go silent when the censorship or the COVID tyranny starts. They are the insiders who sabotage Doge while claiming to support efficiency. They rely on us being confused. They rely on us fighting each other instead of fighting them. But the game of werewolf has one flaw. It only works in the dark. Once you turn the lights on, once you identify the saboteurs, the game is over. The villagers have the numbers. We have the power. So look closely at who is standing next to you. Look at who produces results and who produces excuses. Because in politics, just like in the game, the only way the village survives is if we wake up. Clip it. Clip it, Brad. Let's continue. So if the A1 segment, the Javier Milei stuff, was about hope in Argentina, this segment is about war in America. Because something happened yesterday that I've been waiting for my entire adult life, something that Ron Paul dreamed about, something that the media is currently hyperventilating over. Reports are confirming that Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell is officially under criminal investigation by the Department of Justice. You heard that right. The chairman of the Federal Reserve, the man who controls the money supply, the man who decides if you can afford a mortgage. He's not just being criticized, he's being investigated. The media is calling this a constitutional crisis. They're calling it an assault on the independence of the Fed. You know what I call this? Accountability. For 113 years, the Federal Reserve has operated as a fourth branch of government, unelected, unaccountable, unconstitutional. They printed us into $36 trillion of debt. They devalued our dollar by 98% since 1913. And every time that they crash the economy, they give themselves a bonus and they bail out their friends on Wall Street. But yesterday, the music stopped. The Trump administration isn't just auditing them, they are indicting them. Now, we don't have all the details of the charges yet, but the rumors are centering on, quote, breach of trust and deliberate sabotage of the economic recovery. If this is true, it is the most significant move toward American economic liberty, maybe in our history. Milei shouted, burn down the central bank. Trump is doing the American version, handcuff the central banker. So it's in this. So while Trump goes after the money power, the resistance is going after the borders. So yesterday, the state of Minnesota, led by the ghost of the Walz administration, officially sued the Trump administration to halt ICE enforcement operations in their state. So let's be clear about this. All right, this isn't a lawsuit. This is a mutiny. Right? We have a blue state governor using your federal tax dollars to sue the president to protect criminal aliens from being deported. But here's the best part. Here's the find out phase of F around. Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem didn't blink. She didn't call her lawyer. She announced yesterday that DHS is sending hundreds more ICE agents to Minnesota immediately. She said, if you want to protect criminals, you can explain to your voters why you are prioritizing foreign gangs over American citizens, but you will not stop federal law enforcement. So this is the clash that we've been waiting for. On one side, the deep state, the Federal Reserve, and the blue state governors protecting the old order. On the other side, the mandate, the chainsaw, and the rule of law. The werewolves I talked about, they are revealing themselves. Jerome Powell is a werewolf. The Minnesota AG is a werewolf. They're terrified, and they should be. So why is the Fed chair so panic-stricken, right? Why is Minnesota suing? Why did the unions sue to kill Doge? Because for the first time in our lives, the managerial class is actually threatened. They're used to Republicans like Romney who give tax cuts, but they'll leave the system alone. They're not used to a movement that questions their right to exist. They are not used to a president who asks, why do we need a Fed? They're not used to a secretary who asks, why do we need a sanctuary city? Right? This is what a real revolution looks like. It's messy, it's loud, it's full of lawsuits and investigations. But look at the alternative. Look at Europe. Look at places that didn't fight back. They are dead. We are alive. The fight for the Fed is a fight for your wallet. The fight in Minnesota is a fight for your safety. It is all one war. And for the first time in a long time, I think that we are winning. Now, I want you to stick around with us today because about 20 minutes from now, we're going to have Scott Fawn coming up to talk about a local victory here for local media in Missouri. I'm Austin Peterson. The Fed is under siege, and I'm loving every minute of it. Loving it. Freaking loving it. We might actually have time for that fight breakdown of the MAGA man, but somebody else saw that I was celebrating the MAGA man who knocked out 5 Antifa and Quifa, and somebody else sent me this video. I haven't watched it yet, so hopefully there's not too many F-bombs.
Your feedback, it's your fault, actually.
Stop now. Get the fuck out of here. You're actually so embarrassing. You back with your shit.
I saw you last time.
Stupid. You're fucking stupid. You're actually fucking stupid. We're gonna body check it because what? His megaphone?
Who is talking to you? No. Hey, this is the line that they created.
What? They wanted more government, guys. They wanted more government, and what did they get? They got more government. Now, I know what my libertarian friends are going to say. They're going to say, Austin, you shouldn't be celebrating this. Oh, really? Oh, really? Well, let me show you an old meme. It's an old meme, sir, but it checks out. Hear this from the Occupy Wall Streets in New York City. The leftist who wanted more government. The leftist who got more government. We are laughing. We are laughing. We are laughing. Well, it means that you don't mean it, believe and don't tread on me. I'm sorry, but any definition of libertarianism that refuses to allow us to celebrate the downfall of murdering communist, violent, socialist terrorists is no libertarianism that I will have anything to do with. I don't want a revolution without dancing, Emma Goldman, and I don't want a revolution that doesn't involve crushing the communists. We must crush the communists, right? Now, I want to take you inside a room at the White House yesterday. So 2 reporters from the New York Times walked in. They had little notepads, they had their little recorders, and they had what they thought was the perfect trap. They sat down with Donald Trump, a man who has Jewish grandchildren, a Jewish daughter, and who just spoke to the Knesset 3 months ago. And they asked him, Mr. President, are you an anti-Semite? I mean, the audacity of that question itself is breathtaking. But the answer was legendary. Trump didn't flinch. He didn't apologize. He looked them dead in the eye and said, I am probably the least anti-Semitic person there is anywhere in the world. And then he dropped the hammer on the fringe weirdos who try to attach themselves to our movement. He said, we don't need them. We don't like them. Boom. That is the sound of a leader cleaning house. That is the sound of a man who knows exactly who he is and doesn't need a lecture from the newspaper. Remember, the New York Times that covered up the Holocaust in the 1940s and covers for Hamas in the 2020s. The New York Times wanted a headline that said, Trump refuses to condemn hate. Instead, they got a headline that says, Trump tells racists to get lost. And they are furious about it because they needed him to be the villain. They need you to be the villain. They need MAGA to be a bunch of skinheads in a basement. But Trump reminded them that MAGA isn't about race. It's about America. And if you hate Jews, you aren't America first. You're just a loser with a podcast, he said, without a hint of irony. But watch how they play the game. The Times reporters didn't want to talk about Trump's Abraham Accords. They didn't want to talk about peace in the Middle East that Trump just secured. No, they wanted to talk about Nick Fuentes. They asked him, but Mr. President, you had dinner with Nick Fuentes in 2022. 2022. That was 4 years ago, right? This is what I call zombie journalism. When they can't attack your record today, they dig up a corpse from 4 years ago and try to make it dance. Trump's response, perfect. He didn't play their game. He said, I had dinner with Kanye. He brought a friend. I didn't know who he was. And frankly, I don't care. And why should he? Let's look at the scoreboard. On one side, you have a dinner accident from 2022. On the other side, you have the actions of 2025 and 2026. So while the media was hyperventilating about a dinner, Trump was busy stripping $400 million in federal funding from Columbia University because they refused to protect Jewish students. So while the media was talking about offensive texts from a low-level staffer named Paul Ingracia, Trump was deporting foreign students who chanted death to Israel on our campus. Do you see the difference here? Right, the left offers words, right? They offer condemnations. Trump offers consequences, right? He told the universities, you want to run a factory for anti-Semitism? Fine, you can pay for it yourself. That is the most pro-Jewish action any president has taken in 50 years. And the New York Times hates him for it. And let's talk about that staffer, that Paul Ingracia guy. They found some text messages where he made some stupid, edgy jokes. They screamed, disavow, disavow, right? And Trump gave the only honest answer that a CEO can give. He says, I have thousands of people working here. No shit. Are you possibly going to know every single one of them? Right? He says, but let's look at the double standard, right? The media demands that Trump personally vet every single text message sent by every single mid-level bureaucrat in the GSA. Meanwhile, the Democratic Party has sitting members of Congress, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib. They openly parroted Hamas propaganda after October 7th. Did the New York Times sit down with Kamala Harris and ask, will you disavow the squad? No. They just called them brave voices of dissent. Trump sees the trap. He knows that if he apologizes For Ingrassia today, they're gonna find a janitor who tweeted a meme tomorrow, right? It is a game of guilt by association. And Trump just flipped the board. He pivoted to his family. He said, I have a Jewish daughter. I have Jewish grandchildren. I'm proud of them. You can't fake that. And you can't spin that. Right? The man who moved the embassy to Jerusalem, the man who recognized the Golan Heights, the man whose grandkids light the menorah in the White House is not an anti-Semite. And the people who are screaming that he is are the same people who built encampments at Columbia to terrorize those same grandkids. Clip it. Clip it, Brad. Clip it. I'm almost done. So here's the bottom line. So why did the interview with the New York Times asking about Nick Fuentes, why did it matter, right? Why am I spending 15 minutes on this, right? Because Trump drew a line in the sand that needed to be drawn. For years, the media has tried to blur the line between nationalism and racism. They want you to think that loving your country means hating other races. Trump just clarified it once and for all. He said, we don't need them. Who is them? Them are the racial collectivists, the people who obsess over bloodlines instead of borders, the people like Nick Fuentes who think the problem with America is the Jews. Trump is saying, no, the problem with America is the globalists. The problem with America is the bureaucrats. The problem is the traitors. And plenty of those traitors are white. Plenty are not. MAGA is a club for patriots. It's a club for people who want safe streets, a strong dollar, and a border that works. If you are racist, you are playing a small, stupid game. And Trump, the builder, the mogul, the winner, doesn't have time for small, stupid games. He's building a coalition that includes Jewish mechanics in Brooklyn, black entrepreneurs in Atlanta, and Hispanic ranchers in Texas. That is the nightmare, by the way, for the New York Times, because they can't smear a coalition that big. So let them print their transcripts, let them wring their hands. Trump has the Jewish vote, he has the Arab vote, and he has the American vote. We don't need the haters. And guess what? We're winning without them. I'm Austin Peterson, and that is how you crush a media ambush. Are we having fun yet? I feel like we're having lots of fun. Oh, Barbie, come on, Barbie, let's go party. Oh, Ken, oh, I love you, Ken. So we talk a lot about, on this show, about the death of the American media. Right? We talk about how hedge funds in New York swoop in, they buy up all these historic local newspapers, fire all the reporters, sell the buildings, and leave the news deserts in their wake. Well, the man who's going to join me here in less than 10 minutes flipped the script on the corporate media. Scott Fawn from the Missouri Times and many other times is joining us here live in studio in less than 10 minutes. Don't go away. You've unlocked the bonus content. Sit back and enjoy it. It's the Wake Up America show, and this is the 4 Liberty Network.
The Minnesota fraud scandal is just the tip of the iceberg. Medicaid fraud has been endemic at the state and federal levels for decades. Focusing on a single official or state misses a deeper lesson. Growing national outrage over Minnesota's welfare fraud is justified, but not because of where it took place, or because it implicates members of any immigrant community. It's much more than a Minnesota story. The outrage is justified because Americans are finally getting a concrete look at what happens when pushing public money out the door matters more than verifying the eligibility of the recipients, confirming services were delivered, or ultimately being a good steward of taxpayers' money. Since 2022, investigators have uncovered a staggering amount of fraud, including $250 million siphoned from pandemic-era child nutrition programs to a network of individuals and shell companies, and have secured dozens of indictments with more prosecutions underway. But it goes beyond that. Federal prosecutors now suggest that up to half of the $18 billion spent on 14 Medicaid-funded Minnesota programs since 2018 may have been tied to fraud. The scandal touches programs covering housing assistance, autism therapy, and other welfare services. Even if those estimates are ultimately revised downward, the pattern is unmistakable. Fraud did not merely slip through the cracks. It became routine. Minnesota is not the exception, but rather the example Americans finally noticed. Medicaid fraud has been endemic at the state and federal levels for decades. Politicians haven't done much, even with scholars and journalists raising the alarm. Medicaid reports $543 billion in improper payments over the past decade, though that figure omits one of the largest sources of error: whether states correctly determined the eligibility of the individuals they enrolled and paid providers on behalf of. According to Paragon Institute calculations, this brings improper payments to $1.1 trillion over those 10 years. Improper payments are not identical to fraud. Many involve missing documentation or administrative errors. But that distinction offers little comfort considering how little money is recovered. They are also an open invitation for more abuse. Actual fraud, meanwhile, is widespread and persistent. In 2024 alone, state Medicaid fraud control units reported more than 1,151 convictions and more than $1.4 billion in civil and criminal recoveries. Federal enforcement recovers a tiny share of what is stolen. Fraud that goes undetected never appears in the data. That's only the tip of the iceberg. Medicare, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, and many other welfare programs also suffer from massive fraud. The Affordable Care Act's ACA exchange subsidies provide another cautionary example. A recent Government Accountability Office report shows that the fraud risks in the ACA's advanced premium tax credit remain severe a decade after they were first identified. The ability to gain subsidized coverage for fictitious applicants without providing required documentation, tens of thousands of Social Security numbers used for overlapping coverage, and more than $21 billion in subsidies never reconciled with tax filings are among the findings. Nonetheless, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services has not updated its fraud risk assessment since 2018 and still lacks a comprehensive anti-fraud strategy. It's tempting to treat the Minnesota scandal as a morality play about managerial incompetence. And yes, Governor Tim Walz deserves some blame. When red flags persist for years across multiple programs, failure of leadership is part of the story. But focusing on a single official or state misses the deeper lesson. The problem is not administrative capacity, it's incentives. Spending other people's money with little personal consequence for failure leads to a collapse of accountability, regardless of who's in charge. In addition, voters have limited incentives to monitor complex programs. Interest groups, by contrast, have strong incentives to organize around government spending. None of this requires bad intentions. It's predictable human behavior flowing from predictable incentives, but it creates an environment for waste and fraud to take root. What would a serious anti-fraud agenda look like? First, simplify the structure of the programs that produce improper payments and fraud. Federal matching grants, which Medicaid is largely built around, push states to build systems far larger than they would ever fund themselves, diluting accountability and encouraging growth for its own sake. Second, do away with automatic enrollment and the pay now, scrutinize later style of oversight, which lets temporary errors turn into recurring bills. Any beneficiary's eligibility must be regularly affirmed. If this can't be done at scale, the honest response is to scale back on unsustainable promises, not to add more bureaucracy. Third, ultimately, no oversight regime can police a government so large and complex. Some programs must be split up or entrusted with fewer responsibilities. Those that can't account for where their dollars go should operate with tighter budgets. The public is right to be angry. In fact, it should be angrier and in a more bipartisan way, but we should not demand tougher rhetoric, more task forces, or another round of enforcement layered onto the same broken structure. If we want less fraud, we need less government. Minnesota's not the whole story, but it's a fraud alert that's hard to ignore. Imagine bringing George Washington back to life. Just to explain that in 2025, men can get pregnant, waving an American flag might offend someone, and our government is $34 trillion in debt. But that's not all, George. We have drag queen story hour for toddlers, pronouns are mandatory, and Harvard can't define woman. Oh. And we send billions to Ukraine but can't fix potholes in Ohio. You know, just normal modern empire stuff. I'm sure he'd be totally cool with it. Right after he finishes reloading. He didn't cross the Delaware for this nonsense, but you can carry on the fight with gear that would have made King George cry. Shop bold, shop free, shop4libertyshop.com. Picture this. It's 1776. Thomas Jefferson is hunched over his desk at Monticello, ink-stained fingers, writing the most radical document in human history. Do you really think he was sipping Starbucks? No. He was drinking something bold, something black, something brewed strong enough to fuel a revolution. That's the spirit behind Founding Flavors, our signature line of liberty-fueled coffee. No soy froth, no climate guilt, no corporate slogans. Just real coffee, inspired by the men who wrote freedom into existence. Every cup is a quiet protest. Against mediocrity, against tyranny, against bad coffee. So this morning, skip the globalist brew. Grab something worthy of a free man's sunrise. Founding Flavors. Now brewing at forlibertyshop.com. Legend has it, back in 1773, a band of angry, overtaxed patriots stormed a British ship, found the king's favorite tea, and said, "This would taste better without the tyranny." Then they tossed it overboard. Fast forward to today. That revolutionary spirit lives on in Boston Harbor Black, the boldest brew in the For Libert tea lineup. It's dark, it's smooth, it's unapologetically American, just like the folks who drink it. Whether you're sweetening it up on the front porch or drinking it straight like a Minuteman before battle, this isn't tea for royalty, it's tea for rebels. No fake flavors, no corporate slogans, just a cold glass of Don't Tread on Me in liquid form. So skip the woke iced tea aisle and stock up on Boston Harbor Black at forlibertyshop.com. Because when the heat's rising, the least you can do is drink like a patriot.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian, and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
Do you hate the deep state? Do you reject the Antichrist in all his ways?
Greenland should make the deal because Greenland does not want to see Russia or China take over. They don't go there. It's very far away from Greenland. And Greenland, basically, their defense is 2 dog sleds. Do you know that? You know what their defense is? 2 dog sleds.
Good morning. Welcome to the Wake Up America Show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. You know, we talk a lot on this show about the death of the American media. We talk about how hedge funds in New York, they swoop in, they buy up historic local newspapers, they fire all the reporters, they sell the buildings, and then they leave these news deserts in their wake. It's a tragedy because when local news dies, local corruption thrives. But today we've got a different story, a victory story right here in the Show Me State. A massive media shift just happened, and for once, the good guys won. Instead of a conglomerate swallowing a small-town newspaper, a local operator bought the farm back. The Jefferson City News Tribune, the Fulton Sun, the California Democrat. These are institutions with deep roots. They have just been acquired by a group led by a man who actually lives here, a man who actually knows the names of the people in the obituaries. He's proving that the future of news isn't corporate consolidation, it's local ownership. Publisher of the Missouri Times, host of This Week in Missouri Politics, and now the newest newspaper baron of the Midwest. Joining me now to talk about saving the printing press from the corporate chopping block, my friend Scott Fawn. Scott, welcome to the show.
Austin, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the introduction, and I'm going to be honest with you. I'm excited about owning our local newspaper here in the community we live in.
I know what, it is exciting. For people who work in this business, Scott, that's kind of our dream, man.
Yeah.
You're living it.
It's fun. It's you know, to me, you know, a lot of it, Austin, I've watched you create this entire empire, this entire channel, multiple channels, off of some stuff you started on your cell phone. and it's the truth is, it is a bad time to be in the newspaper business. That's true. But it's a great time to be in the media space. And we were just talking about the innovative company Elgato. I mean, there's a technology group that is innovating, that is making it possible for other people to innovate. And, you know, the News Tribune, the one thing it can't be 5 years from now is a newspaper won't exist. It can be it can be a newspaper and all that is all that's available through technology. Entrepreneurs have created technology, and now media entrepreneurs are able to take that technology forward. And it's like I said, is it a bit of a scary time to be in the newspaper business? Yes. But I mean, I saw some polling in that congressional race we had here last summer. The News Tribune's the most respected news brand by a large factor. Now, some of that is maybe it's boring, and so you kind of get that a little bit without some life. But also, you know, that trademark matters to people in this community. That they associate that with legitimate news. And while that's a bit of a humbling, thing to take on, obligation, it's also fun to think that, you know, we can take that and innovate that to the next 160 years.
Well, what we have seen in Missouri especially, and, you know, with outlets like the Kansas City Star and others who have struggled so mightily financially, is sort of an inability to deal with the times. And, you know, I've worked at many of these newsrooms and many of these institutions with some of these people. And when I say, you know, they're not hip, they're not with it, like, it's more than just a catchphrase. They're really not doing best practices, Scott. Here's the thing. I live and die by the free market on the podcasting network. If I don't kill, I don't eat. But the reporters seem to have this sort of non-profit-ish feel when they're running for-profit institutions that is an urgency that you really kind of can't make up for. I don't know if the sales departments and the editorial departments are so far apart now that you have these editorialists who are criticizing the audience of people who would buy the newspapers, and the salespeople can't sell it because who wants to go and buy a newspaper that clearly hates its audience?
Well, here's my take. Why is Austin Peterson successful? Work ethic, entrepreneur, yeah, all that. Lots of people have that. You're real. I know Austin Peterson when he's not on the air. He's the same guy. I know him when we're having a beer. I know him when we're having dinner with our significant others. You're real. And I think Cindy O'Loughlin, a politician here in Missouri, gets away with stuff nobody else does for the simple reason that she's real. She's a real person that has real emotions, and whatever she's saying, it doesn't look phony. And I think the biggest problem with newspapers is they start off being dishonest. They will look you in the eye and say, we have no bias, when they always have liberal bias. We totally straight up news when it's always shaded left. Now, I think it's easier for a conservative to see liberal bias and vice versa than to see our own. But I think the reader, even your Democrat, right? Maybe not your protester, pussy hat wearing, out there, but you're just average, maybe you're Union Democrat, right? They don't believe that you're not biased. I think what we do is say, yeah, I'm from West Butler County, down in Missouri's Boot Heel. I've always been a Republican. Some days I'm more proud of that than others. I've always tried to be common sense. I've always tried to care about if you work for a living, if you're in a union, if you get up, if you're on the way to work right now watching this, or you're watching this from your job, I'm for you. If you work, count me as your friend. If you're sitting on your hind end all day, I probably don't have a lot of time for you. And I think just owning where you come from, because if the New York Times tells you they're not biased, that's just not plausibly real. I think they'd be so much better off to say, yeah, back in the day, there was two papers. There was a line, and the newspaper line was what it was, and you knew. And I think they were successful and had more influence when they were honest. Yeah,
there's this disconnect, too, in the modern time. We talk about populism, right? In some ways, you're kind of expressing the cultural version of that. You're a man of the land, right? You're a man of the people. You're a hillbilly,
100%.
Self-described, right? I was born and raised on a farm in Peculiar, Missouri. And there's something about being in touch with, we shop at Target, right? We go to Walmart and buy our stuff, right? The elites in this country, and many of them in this state, they don't do their own grocery shopping, Scott. No. They don't see the rising cost of goods and services. Or many of them are just flacks, say, for some politician or another. So they're just going to give you like the Pravda version of whatever it is that you're going to hear. So how do you sort of operate in a world where you need to get the interview with the elitist, globalist, New World Order preaching, Federal Reserve loving, Wall Street Journal reading? How do you sort of deal with it? You need to get an interview with them, and then also you need to connect with the average person, connect that with the average person. How do you connect those two strata in society?
Well, I'm going to tell you my take on it. I'm actually proud of the fact on our show this week in Missouri Politics, we have Democrats and Republicans. You cannot name a Democrat politician in the state that hasn't been on the show. We start every legislative session with the Democrat leaders in the House and Senate and the Republican leaders in the House and Senate. And the only way I can't tell you how to do that on a global scale. Me personally, it's relationships. I'll call people up and go have a beer with them. I'll talk to them. I'll be straight with them. And I've found that is the best way to bring in people that don't always agree with you, whether it's within your own party, whether it's the other party. If you sit down and build a relationship and you treat people with respect, I think, most folks, if you reach out, they appreciate the reach out. If you sit down and you learn about their family and their kinfolks and their job and what they do when they're not working, and then you're decent to them and professional, I find most people, now you're real extremist, kind of the angry types, that's not my focus, but frankly, those aren't the folks that generally succeed anyway. So you don't need their interview all that much. So I believe it's personal relationships. Now, I know that probably doesn't always relate to every other form of media, but in Missouri, it's just relationships and Bud Light.
I mean, it's true. It's sometimes hard to strike that balance between the average grass-fed, steak-eating Missourian and your more classical type elite who live in mansions in gated communities, behind guards with dogs. and lead lifestyles that really are disconnected from what the average Missourian really deals with here. Because let's be honest, Missouri's got challenges, okay? We live in a state that has the #1 most dangerous city in the entire United States. And if you're going to get murdered in a state in the United States, the most likely chance it's going to happen in St. Louis. And we have a disconnect between the elites who don't have to worry about the dangers on the streets, and they're fine, and they're happy to keep the status quo, Scott, right? But they don't have to worry. They've got an armed guard walking them down the street if they want to go to the Fox Theater, right? They want to go have a nice dinner in St. Louis. But there is a crime problem in that city, and these local Democrats have been fighting the state stepping in and cleaning it up. Frankly, it's time for Trump to come in and clean it up, I think. If
what
somebody
do you
doesn't.
do, though? I mean, I would go back to you. You know, in New York, they did some really aggressive policing tactics where I would say it's very likely Austin Peterson wouldn't appreciate some of the things Rudy Giuliani did to clean up New York. In New Orleans, there was a tornado that came in and took out some of the poorest places, which, frankly, if we're being real, the poorest communities are the ones that have the most crime. I got a lot of buddies on the St. Louis Police Department. I met them at the union hall, but they're not business managers. They're just cops that are members of the police union. They're fired up about the state takeover. I underestimated it, what a morale boost that would be. But Austin, I'm not confident that that's going to lead to solving the problem. I don't know what solves the problem. I think you may push crime around. I'm not sure you actually solve a lot of crime. You may run it up into Florissant. I don't know. I'm a little pessimistic you solve crime. Now, murders, I think if you're talking about murders, to be honest, I think 80% of the murders are surrounded by the drug trade somewhere, and they're in a spot in, if we're being real, they're in a spot in North St. Louis, north of Del Mar, but the everyday crimes, the break-ins, the muggings, those creep down, and how you solve that, I do think, at least I feel safer if I see a cop. And I'm white trash. I don't call the cops. That's not in my nature. But if I'm in
this house protected by the Second Amendment,
yeah, we got pistols here. I feel very safe.
There's a rifle right up there.
I feel extremely safe here at Austin's studio.
AK-47 in the corner.
I mean, but I do in St. Louis, if I'm driving home, I don't really want to see a cop. I'll be honest with you. I'm real liberty-minded at that point. I'm AP for liberty, baby, when I see that cop bugging me when I'm trying to get home from work. But in St. Louis, walking down the street, shoot me. I don't mind seeing that cop.
Yeah, I don't mind either. But that's an interesting balance you struck there. So marijuana, you talked about drugs. Yeah. Marijuana's been legalized in Missouri for, what, a couple of years now? How are we adjusting? I mean, I'm hearing other states are trying to repeal their drug repeal laws. So you think that there's an appetite for that in Missouri? Or do you think that the average Joe weed smoking, like Willie Nelson, tending his hemp garden out in Florissant or wherever they're running out here in Jefferson City, do you think that they're fine and the police don't bother them? You think legalizing marijuana has been a success in Missouri, or has it been a failure or something in between?
My gut is to let people make their own choices. You want to, and I'll just do a commercial for them.
Go ahead.
I was never drugs. All the vices I have, which is a very long list, drugs were never one of them. However, I've started on the gummy train a little bit, and I kind of like it.
He ate a gummy and he liked it.
Yeah, I ate the gummy and I liked it. So I started off with one for sleep. I had somebody say, "Hey, try this to go to sleep." I was having a little trouble sleeping, and I was going through a divorce, and it was a hectic time. Take the gummy, sleep like a baby. And so I didn't want to get addicted because, all the stereotypes. So I do about once, twice a week. And then I thought, well, these work so well. I went back to buy some because these were given to me. So I go buy some at the dispensary. And I think, I'll try one of those sativas and just see how this goes. And Austin, when I drink, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's how fast they can bring them to me.
Yeah.
And it's been
So it's been a personal success for you in Missouri.
So I think what happened here is this is one time when the regulation probably did yield a good result. I normally think when things are as regulated as pot is in the state, it's not good. But I will say this. I think your average Missourian was okay with you doing some medicinal, and they were okay with this. But it's in Missouri, it's highly, highly regulated. I don't think it'll have to be that way forever. But I think the reason you're not seeing a big movement to repeal the Missouri law is it's in a dispensary. You got to show your ID. It's kind of a pain to buy gummies. or I'm not sure what else they sell.
Well,
I just buy
Bob
gummies.
Onder I think he was on the whole get rid of gummies train, because I think I remember specifically interviewing my congressman. I love Bob Onder, but I disagree with him on this.
He'll tell you how to live, though.
Yeah, he will tell me how to live.
He'll tell you how to live.
Yeah, he didn't want the gummies, and they always, of course, it's always for the children, Scott, because the kids might see the Nerds candy, and I think you even talked about that.
Well, now I will
point.
say this. The reason that you're not seeing, excuse me, the reason you haven't seen the repeal movement is because your average person that goes to church and thinks, reefer madness, it's not in their face. They don't see it. They don't know. They don't see anybody staggering down the sidewalk high and all that, because that's just not what's happened here. I think that you have a hemp industry who's used the loophole, the hemp loophole, to sell a lot of stuff in gas stations. And I want to tell you, that's where if you want to see a repeal movement, let the first kid get sick. And these things are wrong. These are not regulated, not tested. They're made to look like candy.
Well, they came out. Oh, you're talking about the gummies with candy, right?
The hemp derived. Yeah.
Those like
that
the
is
Delta.
that's gonna. If you want to know what's gonna set the marijuana industry back in this state, it's when anybody, but let's say a child, the most sympathetic case, gets a hold of one of those. And again, my general thought is let's not regulate a bunch of stuff. But I will tell you, the marijuana industry so far has been a big success financially for the state. I think the public has accepted it well. They make money, so there you go. I think the limiting, regulating somehow that over the counter gas station stuff is something the state's going to have to do, or you're going to see that movement will start in Missouri.
That's interesting, and a really interesting point of view. What I'm hearing from people is that they don't like the smell of it, and we will smell it in our major cities. When you walk by people in department stores, you will smell it, right? And they call that a negative externality. So they say, well, at what point is somebody's, swinging of their fists hitting my nose, metaphor, but also, quite literally to some extent. At what point do you say, okay, well, you section it off from society, right? Is there a libertarian argument to be made that you're infringing? I mean, if you blow smoke in somebody's face who didn't ask to smoke marijuana, you certainly can't,
that's not right.
You can't smoke it in public, right? But it seems like it's everywhere. It's out there. So, at some level, how do you enforce it to prevent other people's rights from being violated who do not wish to partake, right, to some extent?
Marijuana has a very distinct smell. Like, I never smoked marijuana in my life. I'm not good at smoking things. It's just never been probably helped me out in life. But I went into a bathroom once and smelled that when I was probably 15, 16, and the guy was just said, they've been smoking pot in here. I think, look, if you're at the mall and if you're smoking pot, it's going to smell on your jacket, right? And if you have your coat on because it's cold and you've been smoking pot in your car, your jacket smells like pot. Also, people have cheap perfume, cheap cologne. I think some of that stuff in a free society, fine. Now, I also think if the store manager at Dillard says you can't be in here with that, you smell, leave. If you have body odor, if you have crappy perfume, if you smell like weed, I think it's totally the store's prerogative to say, hey, we're going to make less money with you stinking in here and running people off. You got to go. I think that is absolutely their prerogative. I can tell you to handle it.
I think discrimination is actually a good thing. It's been demonized in this country, but there have been civil rights acts that have passed, and we have a conversation about diversity, equity, inclusion. Now we're reverse discriminating in this country. And now there's another interesting topic that you'll be covering in your newspapers is the death of DEI, ESG, environmental, social, and governance.
I don't think it's dead.
Oh, and there's the question. So would they rebrand, and do they defy the Supreme Court decision on affirmative action and other things?
You've had what I would say 30 years of socialization that straight white heterosexual Christian males are bad, and every problem in the world is their fault. Everything good that happened in the world is in spite of them. That culture with Trump, you've seen a pushback from regular people. Look, did the civil rights movement need to happen? Damn right. Were gay people mistreated in this country for a long time? Yeah, and sometimes still they are. But I think everything can go too far. And when you start with this DEI stuff, you've now taken the putting people on a level playing field, which I personally support. And I'd even say every so often, all right, the guy that's been a little downtrodden, give him a little bit. Now it's you're out of whack. Trump was a pushback, but that corporate culture is not gone. It's just a little quieter. What changed it all was when you now have the publicly traded companies are not really that susceptible to the market. They're susceptible to hedge funds and different people to get their money. Bud Light learned you can screw up so bad that you get there, but for the most part, it's a different world. When Trump leaves office, It will be back. It'll probably be called something else. But that thing, this essentially the thought of straight right heterosexual Christian males are bad. That is just maybe sleeping. It is not dead, in my opinion.
Is Missouri about to abolish its income tax?
Yes. Well, they're going to go on a road. Mike Kehoe, we had this talk when I've been on in the past. Camelia Peterson is one of my absolute favorite people.
We love her. Camelia's
absolutely.
Camelia's on every Tuesday and Thursday. She was supposed to be here today, but she had a committee meeting.
Oh, we had dinner last night. She didn't have a committee hearing. She just Camelia Peterson is one of my it's a house committee, right? It's a house committee. Come on. Camelia is one of my favorite people. One of the greatest things I've gotten from our friendship is getting to know Camelia. And it was so funny. She, of course, wanted a governor that was really mad on Facebook and screamed and yelled.
Of course.
And
we love that.
Yeah. And I said, we had 3 people run for governor. 2 of them, one was what played the right wing like a Stradivarius. Bill Eichel's one of the most talented politicians in this state. Jay means well. Maybe not as smooth as Bill, which there's very few people that are as smooth as Bill. Mike Kehoe is your typical business guy. And I told her, I was like, all this stuff you want, your school choice, your income tax, all these things, Mike Kehoe will actually win those fights. Bill Eigel will fight those fights very loudly, and you'll like it on the internet and Twitter, be gorilla thumbs up. But he won't actually win. Mike Kehoe comes out, and the dude just wins. And he's going to take you on a path to zero. It's going to be a path to zero. I think, to be fair, you're going to pay income tax next year, and the year after that, and the year after that. Your children, at some point, won't. And here's the scary part, Austin. I was so happy to come on here, and if we need to go, tell me now, because I have a question for you.
No, go ahead.
Because you are one of the best debaters of a point. I always respect, I think you could argue both sides of a point most of the time, which to me is the art of a good debater, right? Anybody can argue the part they like. Can you see the other guy's opinion? So my whole life, tax cuts, yes, do the tax cuts. We got to have the tax cut. Any tax cut, don't care what, was great. That's why I was a Republican, right? Some of the telling you how to live stuff ain't my thing, but tax cuts, boom. Missouri, the Republicans took over in 2002. This is the 24th year they've been in power. They've had a supermajority now for 16 years. They've had the supermajority plus the governor's office now for 10 years. Here's the problem. We've cut taxes. We've rolled back. We've done all the Republican checklist of stuff. We're not growing. We're falling behind the national average. So help me out. I'm kind of at this crossroads of, so we went from 6 to 4, all the promises, we'd be growth, the GDP would grow, jobs would grow, people would move here. Austin, none of it's happened.
Well, Missouri is
what do we do? How do I defend it?
Well, Missouri's, remember, a Dixiecrat state. This is the state of Harry S. Truman. This was a Democrat state before, in recent years, it flipped to a supermajority red. And there are technical questions when you're talking about, the ideological makeup of the Republican Party. We're a majority Republican state, but we're not a majority conservative state. And, there's a reason why people like Josh Hawley, who team up with Elizabeth Warren on economic issues, there's a reason why people like that get elected instead of Austin Peterson, because...
Well, the reason the people like that get elected is because Washington people fund them.
For sure, but also there's and Donald Trump endorses, but that populist tide, that MAGA is very strong in Missouri because part of MAGA is not classical free market libertarian limited government cut taxes types. They are Teddy Roosevelt progressive Republicans.
They are whatever Donald Trump tells them to be on a given day.
To some extent.
I don't think there's an ideology to MAGA.
Josh Hawley wrote a book about Teddy Roosevelt. And in that book, he described very clearly what he admired and supported about him. And it wasn't just we're going to start national parks. It was the whole progressive worldview of the right, which is progressive republicanism. And a progressive Republican is someone who does believe that the government should be telling you what to do. It is someone who does believe that the income tax and the 16th and the 17th Amendments were rightly decided. I think the 16th and 17th Amendments were wrongly decided. I don't think we should be paying income tax.
But walk me back through this. So we went from 6 to 4. And we fell behind the curve. Not only have we none of the optimistic things that when these bills were passed have worked. Not one thing. Actually, Missouri has regressed in everything except the University of Missouri is doing very well on every front. Outside of the University of Missouri, we don't have anything to show for it. So now we're going to say, okay, we're going to go from 4 to 0. You're in business. What business strategy do you have to implement every single piece of before you see any?
But these people are anti-growth. You got to understand. My neighbors, they don't want to build. They don't like new building, right? So we talked a lot about Javier Milei of Argentina earlier in the show, right before you came on, and we talked about the strategy. How did he drop prices of rent? Almost in 6 months, the prices of rents dropped and more rentals were available.
Argentina, right?
Argentina,
Yeah.
right? And it's basically the libertarian experiment.
That guy's
writ
fun.
large. Oh my God, he's crazy fun, right? But he makes the slashes. He cuts the departments. He cuts the ministries.
Well, tell me this, because I was so interested. I was going to ask you on Twitter one night when I was I like to read Austin's Twitter because number one, it's funny, and two, it's a different way to look at the world. I don't know a lot of people that approach a problem like you do, which makes it interesting to me. Why did the government, the United States, have to bail out Argentina if things are going so well?
Well, it was a currency swap and not a bailout. And what they swapped was repaid just this month.
Was like America wanting this?
Well, it's a great question because I think people think, well, here's the thing. They voted for Donald Trump. Donald Trump and Scott Pessant did it. So, I mean, he's the only person who's popularly elected in the entire United States. So we elected him for that purpose to make those decisions. So the question about the currency swap, we made money on that deal. So it wasn't quite a bailout, right? So a currency swap is not I'm going to give you cash for this.
I mean, the auto bailout, the government made money on, but it was
so
a bailout.
if you have 100 years of communist, socialist, totalitarian rule, and you destroy a currency, and you put a civilization in shambles, you're not going to come out of you're not going to be transported from liberty, from despotism.
Kind of like
to
the
liberty
Marshall Plan, right?
Yeah, you're not going to get transported from despotism to liberty in a feather bed. There's going to be pain along the way.
Why does it help somebody in Taos if Argentina's good, bad, indifferent?
Well, that's a really good question, and it really depends on what it is, what your goals are for America. Like, what do you want to see? Do you want America to be a superpower? Do you want America to lead the world, or do you want America to retreat? And do you want America to not sort of like ensure that that other people around the world who share our worldviews, who trade with us, like have the ability to do commerce, and that they are not governed by Javier Milei's and not Nicolas Maduro's?
Like I heard the arguments is stay out of Israel's problems. When you say America first, I don't know how spending billions of dollars in Israel and worrying about that constantly is Ukraine. If you say America first, I don't care about Ukraine.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't change my life. When you say America first, I don't know why I care about Argentina. But I don't think.
Well, I agree with the Don Rowe doctrine. I think that it is a different. I think that you cannot conflate the two hemispheres. I think that what is in America's backyard is in America's interests, and I think that ever since the Monroe Doctrine, that it has been important for American national security for us to mind what happens in our backyard. And that's not the same as Israel or Ukraine, where they're farther away and there's less of a security question that involves the United States. What happens in our backyard is of more urgent and pressing concern, I think, than what happens in the Middle East. So you could prioritize rather than sort of conflate the two. I think that those are different. And I think the Don Rowe Doctrine is probably a wise policy.
I liked how Trump said, if you don't vote for my man Milei in the parliamentary elections, not giving you money.
Yeah.
I like the fact that that's the part of Trump I like.
Yes.
Look, I see Trump warts and all. I voted for Trump. I would, I think his records, I paid $2.42 for gas this morning. I think there's a lot to like about Trump, but I am not one of these people that's just, oh my God, Trump's the greatest of all time. I see the warts, but the MAGA folks, I don't, the tariffs, right? This Dick Gephardt's a very prominent former politician from Missouri. His whole career was tariffs. He opposed Clinton, all that. Trump's doing the things Dick Gephardt wanted, versions of them, modern versions. I think the MAGA movement is not a ideology, which is why I don't think it'll have any lasting value. And the MAGA movement is whatever Donald Trump says, and Donald Trump can change his mind on a dime. And he's very pragmatic, which is something I appreciate about him. But I think the MAGA movement ends the day he steps off the stage, because or it'll be like Margaret Thatcher in Britain. She was out of office, but she was still the most influential person in the country. I think it might be that. But Donald Trump, you really can't lay out conservative, liberal, whatever. He's just kind of whatever fits him for the situation.
Well, I think the way I look
it's hard to replicate.
Yes.
That.
Well, the way I see it is like Donald Trump is like chemotherapy, right? He's the shock treatment that you need at the initial phase of cutting out the cancer. And what I see as the cancer is progressivism, communism, socialism, authoritarianism, statism, Nazism, fascism, any kind of collectivism that is violent and prevents people like you and I from being able to.
It's going to have to be violent. You're
Right.
going to have to get violent to force people to do what you want.
And there it is. So Trump is that. He is the truncheon. He is the blunt force bat that you use to hit the liberal with, right? He's who you own the liberals with. And hopefully later on, if it's not MAGA, it's something else, something that's not quite as toxic, right? Perhaps as something as poisonous, but which is necessary. Again, poisons can be used in healing and recovery.
Chemotherapy.
Right? But we needed it. We needed to shock the patient. You needed to give a chemotherapy.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and so that's what I see Trump as, right? And so,
But I don't think you can replicate a guy.
No.
You could. Ronald Reagan had a series of philosophies. Obviously, the great communicator, right? He had some philosophies the Republican Party used to be built on until Trump. It was not just a great politician. It was a person, a belief system that you could impart to others. I don't think MAGA is a belief system. I mean, I think it's just Donald. It's a tremendously charismatic, the greatest politician of our age, able to motivate and touch people in a way we haven't seen in this country in my lifetime for sure. I don't think J.D. Vance replicates that.
No, I agree. I see MAGA as sort of American nationalism, right? Like the people who, broadly, the coalition are people who still believe in American values, maybe still believe in an American dream, right? Still believe in the promise of what America was, right? That they still sort of identify with the concepts of 1776 and the things that make us Americans, right? They probably would still like Reagan, right? They would look at Calvin Coolidge fondly. They would look back at George Washington.
I have the comic book of him.
Yes.
Or Gussie has it, I should say.
Thank you. And we've got another one for you. Grover Cleveland. But the point is that MAGA, what they are, they won't go away. They're just take another form because American nationalists, people who love this country, they're always going to be out there. They're always going to stick together. I know they're my supporters. The people who watch this show, there's a remnant of people out there who still believe in the American experiment. Now, MAGA writ large, when you're talking about like large numbers of people, right, they come together for different reasons. Trump's coalition, they are at odds with one another. RFK Jr. and the Steve Bannon types, they don't really necessarily get along all that great. Trump could bring them together, and when he's gone, you're right. I think MAGA will fall apart to some extent. But there'll always broadly be like an anti sort of, there'll still always be like a don't tread on me, American nationalist, right, Stars and Stripes group of people who have that patriotic resolve. It'll be loose.
But can they win national? I mean, that always exists, but you also have your left wing, whatever. Can you win national election? I think that the part of Trump is testosterone, winning,
yes,
big. And
we needed that.
And your number two, a vice president, by definition, can't be that. It is the worst situation in the world. Can you imagine 3 or 2.5 years from now, Donald Trump stepping back a minute and letting J.D. Vance have the stage? I think he'll just. I don't think J.D. Vance can actually win. And he can only win because of Trump, but I don't think he can win because of Trump. I think you need another person coming from the wings with no baggage, no voting record, so he can be very mobile like Trump is. I think that where Ronald Reagan, because he had a series of beliefs, could take George Bush. Let's be honest, not a great candidate. And you look weak. I mean, George Bush had a war record Ronald Reagan didn't have. He was obviously a more man's man, but the number two makes you look weak. You look like the deputy manager.
I know who that man is, and you're going to laugh when I tell you who it is. You might even know who he is, although it might be a little too obscure for you. He's the mayor of a little county in Tennessee. His name is Glenn Jacobs. You might know him as Kane. That's who I am going to support because he brings that masculine charm with a level of intellectualism that a lot of people don't know. Plus, he's got that pro wrestler background. He's famous. He's got the pro wrestler background, and that's what America wants.
I'm all about some Kane. I actually saw him in Memphis, Tennessee one night as the Christmas Creature.
What?
He was dressed as a Christmas tree wrestling. You can Google it. Look up Glenn Jacobs, Christmas Creature.
I'm looking it up.
I was in Memphis one night watching wrestling, and he came. And at the time I didn't know who that. I'd never heard of any of these people. The Christmas Creature. Later I found out. Yes, that is. I am somewhere in that studio.
Make it here today. We had hoped. He's real busy this time of year. What with the presents and the traveling and all that sort of thing. But the Santa Claus. Santa. I think Santa's over.
Where are you? Where are you at, Scott?
Kids.
I'm looking for me.
There are some bad people.
Bert Prentice is there, his manager.
Right
Yep.
there. He just proved it as if we didn't already.
It's gotta
know
be.
it.
It's got to be Kane.
Jerry Lawler is just around the corner.
That's him.
Christopher.
Let's see.
This is the Christmas preacher. He is huge.
You can tell he didn't do a lot of moves then. It was pretty basic.
Well, what year was that, man?
God,
Jeez.
I was probably in junior high.
Wow. Yeah.
But at the time, I never thought, because he had a mask on, and I'd never seen, Kane wasn't a thing yet.
Yeah.
This is when he was up and coming, learning, and I ended up later seeing, oh my God, I saw Kane when he was like dressed with tinsel and stuff on. I think it's going to have to be somebody like that, though. You're right.
Yeah.
I think they'll go down because we're so institutionalized, and the Republican Party is the most institutionalized thing that there is. I think they'll go with the next guy up. I'm not sure Vance is a bad guy. Eric Schmidt speaks very highly of him. I think you're going to see him fail. And then I think a guy like Eric Schmidt could step forward. But I also think the truth is the playbook is now for a person with fame, and they can somewhat self-finance to step in. And I think that's probably the future of the Republican Party after Gavin Newsom comes in.
Oh, no. God, no. Get out. Get out.
Can J.D. Vance beat Gavin Newsom? I don't think so either. And again, I'm not really dogging Vance. I just think the fact that being someone's number two sucks, and it's hard, and there's a reason vice presidents very, very rarely win a national election from the vice presidency. But being Donald Trump's would be even harder, I think. Good night.
Yeah, he does. There really
takes
is,
up the room.
Yeah, there isn't much oxygen left for anybody else. Well, that'll be interesting. People talk about Marco Rubio and all that kind of stuff, and I don't want to focus, this whole segment on national issues, but let's bring it back to here in Missouri, in the heartland, because we both born and raised here. We love Missouri, and we want to see the best for it. I just want to say personally, from the bottom of my heart, someone who's deeply jealous. Congratulations on acquiring those newspapers. It's just it is a life accomplishment. It's the kind of thing that you put on your obituary. It's the kind of thing. It's the kind of thing that every man works himself up to in his life and wants to accomplish. People. Not everybody's Donald Trump and buying Greenland and all this kind of stuff. But the changes that really matter often are these local changes. So I really am looking forward to seeing what direction you take the newspapers. If you ever need somebody to write an op-ed, reach out to me.
I need somebody to not write an op-ed.
Oh, you don't not write an op-ed?
No, I need somebody to write an op-ed. I need not somebody, you.
Yeah, okay, well, you let me know, because I'm happy to help.
You're original, but it's to be this Sean Hannity, whatever the Republicans say I'm for, it doesn't matter. We'll change it in the same hour. To be original and have an original point of view is so rare. Your point. I don't know anyone in my personal life that I can go on the internet and read an opinion that is unique as yours. It's your friendship's valuable to me, but your Twitter is valuable to me because I don't know anybody else that has your point. Maybe there are, but I don't know of them. And it makes me think of things a little differently. I'm not going to sit here and suck up to you and be like, oh, when you say something, I totally agree with you.
Sure.
But there's many things, especially on these national issues that I don't follow as closely. To go get your take, I'm like, I never thought of it that way. I get that. I think, and if you want to take that to a local level, we would be honored, interested anytime you'd want to do it. You don't have to be original to original to news streaming, because it's going to be original to our readers. And if I don't see your opinion, I guarantee you most of our readers aren't exposed to an opinion like yours.
Well, we have a little plan to sort of, provide a little bit more video podcasting coverage of what is happening in Jefferson City. So I'll try and tune my heart a little bit more to what's going on here in JCMO, and we can see if I can put together some words for you. I think I will.
Be grateful.
But Scott, tell me a little bit about, what's the plug? Where can people go? What newspaper are they subscribing to? How can they support you in your mission?
You go to MissouriTimes.com, subscribe to the Missouri Times. You'll get real deep in the weeds on Missouri politics there. You can watch This Week in Missouri Politics. It's a half-hour show broadcast all around the state. This week we'll have Governor Kehoe on. It's his State of the State is later today. We'll have him on this week. And then if you're from mid-Missouri, Fulton, Missouri, the readers of the Fulton Sun energize this state. California, Missouri, not the state, by the way, the city. And then Jeff City News Tribune, we're going to use that as a platform to cover the issues that affect the whole state. So go to newstribune.com. Get a little flavor. If you want to, you could text me 573-429-5770. I'll send you a code for a few weeks. You can check us out, see if you like it.
There we go. Steffi for Liberty, my sweet little wife in the other room, is typing. Scott has been so nice to us. Damn right he has, and we'll repay it in kind. Scott Fawn of the Missouri Times and many other fine publications as well. A Missouri Patriot. Thank you very much for your time
Steffi's
today.
the star, by the way. I mean, that's you know.
We already agreed she needs to be the face of the organization, so.
That is probably fair. Austin, thanks, man. I sure enjoy it.
Thank you very much. That's Scott Fawn. We're going to be right back. You guys have unlocked the bonus content, which means it's time to play Liberty Loot Live. Somebody's going to win a prize after this break. Don't go away. You've unlocked the bonus content. Enjoy it now. It's the Wake Up America show, and that's on the 4 Liberty Network.
The Minnesota fraud scandal is just the tip of the iceberg. Medicaid fraud has been endemic at the state and federal levels for decades. Focusing on a single official or state misses a deeper lesson. Growing national outrage over Minnesota's welfare fraud is justified, but not because of where it took place, or because it implicates members of any immigrant community. It's much more than a Minnesota story. The outrage is justified because Americans are finally getting a concrete look at what happens when pushing public money out the door matters more than verifying the eligibility of the recipients, confirming services were delivered, or ultimately being a good steward of taxpayers' money. Since 2022, investigators have uncovered a staggering amount of fraud, including $250 million siphoned from pandemic-era child nutrition programs to a network of individuals and shell companies, and have secured dozens of indictments with more prosecutions underway. But it goes beyond that. Federal prosecutors now suggest that up to half of the $18 billion spent on 14 Medicaid-funded Minnesota programs since 2018 may have been tied to fraud. The scandal touches programs covering housing assistance, autism therapy, and other welfare services. Even if those estimates are ultimately revised downward, the pattern is unmistakable. Fraud did not merely slip through the cracks, it became routine. Minnesota is not the exception, but rather the example Americans finally noticed. Medicaid fraud has been endemic at the state and federal levels for decades. Politicians haven't done much, even with scholars and journalists raising the alarm. Medicaid reports $543 billion in improper payments over the past decade, though that figure omits one of the largest sources of error: whether states correctly determined the eligibility of the individuals they enrolled and paid providers on behalf of. According to Paragon Institute calculations, this brings improper payments to $1.1 trillion over those 10 years. Improper payments are not identical to fraud. Many involve missing documentation or administrative errors. But that distinction offers little comfort considering how little money is recovered. They are also an open invitation for more abuse. Actual fraud, meanwhile, is widespread and persistent. In 2024 alone, state Medicaid fraud control units reported more than 1,151 convictions and more than $1.4 billion in civil and criminal recoveries. Federal enforcement recovers a tiny share of what is stolen. Fraud that goes undetected never appears in the data. That's only the tip of the iceberg. Medicare, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, and many other welfare programs also suffer from massive fraud. The Affordable Care Act's ACA exchange subsidies provide another cautionary example. A recent Government Accountability Office report shows that the fraud risks in the ACA's advanced premium tax credit remain severe a decade after they were first identified. The ability to gain subsidized coverage for fictitious applicants without providing required documentation, tens of thousands of Social Security numbers used for overlapping coverage, and more than $21 billion in subsidies never reconciled with tax filings are among the findings. Nonetheless, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services has not updated its fraud risk assessment since 2018 and still lacks a comprehensive anti-fraud strategy. It's tempting to treat the Minnesota scandal as a morality play about managerial incompetence. And yes, Governor Tim Walz deserves some blame. When red flags persist for years across multiple programs, failure of leadership is part of the story. But focusing on a single official or state misses the deeper lesson. The problem is not administrative capacity, it's incentives. Spending other people's money with little personal consequence for failure leads to a collapse of accountability, regardless of who's in charge. In addition, voters have limited incentives to monitor complex programs. Interest groups, by contrast, have strong incentives to organize around government spending. None of this requires bad intentions. It's predictable human behavior flowing from predictable incentives, but it creates an environment for waste and fraud to take root. What would a serious anti-fraud agenda look like? First, simplify the structure of the programs that produce improper payments and fraud. Federal matching grants, which Medicaid is largely built around, push states to build systems far larger than they would ever fund themselves, diluting accountability and encouraging growth for its own sake. Second, do away with automatic enrollment and the pay now, scrutinize later style of oversight, which lets temporary errors turn into recurring bills. Any beneficiary's eligibility must be regularly affirmed. If this can't be done at scale, the honest response is to scale back on unsustainable promises, not to add more bureaucracy. Third, ultimately, no oversight regime can police a government so large and complex. Some programs must be split up or entrusted with fewer responsibilities. Those that can't account for where their dollars go should operate with tighter budgets. The public is right to be angry. In fact, it should be angrier and in a more bipartisan way, but we should not demand tougher rhetoric, more task forces, or another round of enforcement layered onto the same broken structure. If we want less fraud, we need less government. Minnesota's not the whole story, but it's a fraud alert that's hard to ignore.
It's time for Liberty Loot Live. Welcome to the Great Grift Off. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. This is the Wake Up America show, and it's time to play American Revolutionary War History Party Mix. Yes, we are playing for real prizes today. Everybody who wants to join in at home can join in. Yes, we are playing a real game. You can play it on your mobile device. You can play it on your PC. Everyone is welcome to join. Every single person. Austin, how do we play the game? It's simple. You go to crowdparty.app. That's crowdparty.app. When you go to crowdparty.app, you'll see a place you can put in the code. The code is 64166. We're playing The Great Grift Off. The Great Grift Off, Liberty Loot Live, is a live game show where you, the audience, can join in and play and compete against each other for real prizes. Today we're playing American Revolutionary War History Party Mix in honor of our trip to Boston. Head on over to crowdparty.app. That's crowdparty.app. Crowdparty.app. Type in that code. Let's play a game. Yes, we're really going to play. And yes, if you're here with us live, you're going to be able to play. And yes, if you win first prize, you will win a prize from the Grift Shop. Head on over to forlibertyshop.com. That's the number for libertyshop.com if you want to do a little shoppy while we wait. In just a few moments, I'm going to hit the 30-second countdown button. When I hit that 30-second countdown button, that means you have 30 seconds to get your booty into the game. Head to crowdparty.app. That's crowdparty.app. Crowdparty.app. 64166 is the code. We're going to play a little American Revolutionary War History Party Mix. No cheating. You guys wouldn't cheat, would you? Come on. Here we go. 30-second countdown has begun. If you want to play, go to crowdparty.app right now. $20 seconds left to get in the game. Let's get the game started. What year did the American Revolutionary War start? Oh, I know a lot of people are going to get this one wrong. Who was the commander of the Continental Army? Was it George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, or Benjamin Franklin? There are 12 rounds in the Great Grift Off. We're on round 3 of 12. Which document declared American independence? The Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, Constitution, or Federalist Papers? I was going to say, I would be very disappointed in you if you got that wrong. St. Selma, she's answering these questions right the fastest. But now a little rock, paper, scissors. Man, I can't believe somebody got that wrong. Wow. Whoever that was, see me after class. Which country allied with America against Britain? Most of you got that right. France. Where did George Washington's troops spend winter in 1777 to 78? Boston, Philly, Yorktown, or Valley Forge? What impact did the war have on Native Americans? Loss of land and autonomy, unchanged situation, increased sovereignty, gain more land. Ooh, Ashley Ann, she's feeling spicy today. What was the last major battle of the American Revolution? Battle of Cowpens, Battle of Saratoga, Trenton, or Yorktown? Yorktown. Traffic lights, test your reactions, click or tap the green light as fast as you can. Derelict came in. Wow, it's really, really close. The next 2 rounds will decide it. In which treaty was the American independence recognized? Treaty of Paris, 1783. Treaty of Versailles, 1919. Treaty of Tordesillas, 1494. Treaty of Ghent, 1814. Treaty of Paris. Who said Treaty of Versailles? One more round. Last round. What was the primary reason for the war? Taxation without representation, military alliances, territorial expansion, or slavery issues? Taxation without representation. Yes, game over. Winner is Ashley Ann. Congratulations. Brad sent her a $25 gift card to 4libertyshop.com. Thank you all, one and all, for the wonderful support. We are so grateful. Happy New Year to everyone. We love you so much. We're excited to see you guys in Boston. I have a proposition for you. We are planning a covert operation. We are going behind enemy lines. We are going to Boston, Massachusetts. Now, I know what you're thinking. Austin, why would we go to the land of high taxes and bad drivers? Because before it was the land of Ivy League socialists, it was the land of rebels. It was the land of Sam Adams, John Hancock, and guys who throw expensive tea into the harbor just to make a point. And I want to take you there. May 1st and 2nd, we're doing the Peterson's Patriots Boston tour. We're hitting the taverns where the revolution was plotted. We're walking the Freedom Trail. We're going to eat clam chowder and talk about how much better things were in 1773. But listen to me. This is important. My accountant tells me I have to be a responsible businessman. So here's the deal. We have 30 days. That is the countdown clock. If we don't sell 10 tickets in the next 30 days, the trip is kaput. It's canceled. I give you your money back and I stay home and cry. Don't make me cry. So to motivate you, I am doing a capitalist special. For the next 10 days only, if you bring a friend, bring your spouse, bring your liberal cousin you're trying to convert, you get 25% off when you buy 2 or more tickets. So use code BOSTON25. If you're riding solo, and you're a Peterson's Patriot subscriber, check your email. You've got your 20% off coupon just for being awesome. You can't stack them because I'm not running a charity here, but you're getting a deal either way. So go to forlibertyshop.com, click the button, join the flotilla. Let's go remind Boston what freedom looks like. 30 days, folks. TikTok. Head to forlibertyshop.com. We're at 4 tickets sold. We need 6 more. See you guys tomorrow. Don't forget tonight, Culturama with Daniela Pensac, the hostess with the mostess at rumble.com/Culturama. And I'll see you guys right back again here tomorrow with me for Liberty on the Wake Up America shows for Liberty Network. Bye, guys.
The Minnesota fraud scandal is just the tip of the iceberg. Medicaid fraud has been endemic at the state and federal levels for decades. Focusing on a single official or state misses a deeper lesson. Growing national outrage over Minnesota's welfare fraud is justified, but not because of where it took place or because it implicates members of any immigrant community. It's much more than a Minnesota story. The outrage is justified because Americans are finally getting a concrete look at what happens when pushing public money out the door matters more than verifying the eligibility of the recipients, confirming services were delivered, or ultimately being a good steward of taxpayers' money. Since 2022, investigators have uncovered a staggering amount of fraud, including $250 million siphoned from pandemic-era child nutrition programs to a network of individuals and shell companies, and have secured dozens of indictments with more prosecutions underway. But it goes beyond that. Federal prosecutors now suggest that up to half of the $18 billion spent on 14 Medicaid-funded Minnesota programs since 2018 may have been tied to fraud. The scandal touches programs covering housing assistance, autism therapy, and other welfare services. Even if those estimates are ultimately revised downward, the pattern is unmistakable. Fraud did not merely slip through the cracks. It became routine. Minnesota is not the exception, but rather the example Americans finally noticed. Medicaid fraud has been endemic at the state and federal levels for decades. Politicians haven't done much, even with scholars and journalists raising the alarm. Medicaid reports $543 billion in improper payments over the past decade, though that figure omits one of the largest sources of error: whether states correctly determined the eligibility of the individuals they enrolled and paid providers on behalf of. According to Paragon Institute calculations, this brings improper payments to $1.1 trillion over those 10 years. Improper payments are not identical to fraud. Many involve missing documentation or administrative errors. But that distinction offers little comfort considering how little money is recovered. They are also an open invitation for more abuse. Actual fraud, meanwhile, is widespread and persistent. In 2024 alone, state Medicaid fraud control units reported more than 1,151 convictions and more than $1.4 billion in civil and criminal recoveries. Federal enforcement recovers a tiny share of what is stolen. Fraud that goes undetected never appears in the data. That's only the tip of the iceberg. Medicare, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, and many other welfare programs also suffer from massive fraud. The Affordable Care Act's ACA exchange subsidies provide another cautionary example. A recent Government Accountability Office report